guys, it's Zoe from Sugar Street Studios. We don't have a tutorial this week because I've just come back off of holiday and I am prepping for the cakes that I've got to do for the week ahead. But one of the cakes I've got to do is a bust cake. So I thought this week I would talk to you a little bit about cake structures and materials for making your own homemade structures for your cakes. So let's talk materials. When I am making a cake that needs a cake structure, I don't use a regular cake board with those thick cake drums that are covered in foil. I use MDF. I buy sheets of it and I cut down my own squares using a jigsaw. So MDF is what I will use for my base board, and then as I'm supporting cake boards higher up, I'll use thinner grades of MDF. Now, I said to you before, I buy big sheets and I cut down with a jigsaw. What I also do when I have to use circles or ovals is I order these online from a local supplier. I cannot cut that, can't, that's totally beyond me. So I found a place local to me. Do your research online and I order them. I ring them up, I tell them what I need, they have a machine there and they cut them out for me. The reason we need to use MDF as the base and as part of our internal structure is because we need to be able to screw into these boards. So for the internal supports on a cake, this is what I tend to use. Threaded rod. Threaded rod I use, excuse these are all scrappy bits sort of left over here, but 6mm, 8mm, and then up to a 10mm. How do we cut our threaded rod? We use a junior hacksaw. Threaded rod you can buy from DIY stores. Your local hardware stores will sell them. Building supplies shops will sell them. They're pretty easy to get hold of. Likewise with these, it's a really standard piece of DIY kit. Just make sure you've got something that has a good blade. So these generally come in metre length. Sometimes they come longer, and I buy them in lengths and then I cut them down as I need to. In order to attach your rods to your boards, you're going to need to drill holes in your baseboard. So you're going to need to get to grips with power tools. So I use, this is my power tool, so this is a corded version because we use it around the house as well and they're just a bit more powerful than cordless versions. This is a wood drill bit. So the drill bit, size of the drill bit needs to be the same size as the hole for the threaded rod that you are making. So for example, this is a 6mm drill bit, which I would use if drilling a hole if using my 6mm threaded rod. Okay? So the next question is, how do we attach the threaded rods to our boards? We use these, nuts and washers. So the nuts are these little hexagonal threaded pieces and the washers are discs. The nuts and the washers need to be the same size as the threaded rod. This is an 8mm piece of threaded rod, which is called an M8 in the UK, they call it M8. So I then went out and bought a packet of M8 washers and M8 nuts. And essentially, these allow you to screw the rods to the boards by keeping them in place. I'm going to show you in a second. These pliers. You need a good set of pliers in order to get around your nuts to tighten them, okay? So let's just show you what I mean about how to attach these. It works like a sandwich, okay? So the first thing that goes on is your nut. Then the second thing that goes on is your washer. Then you take your cake board, your mini cake board, which has been pre-drilled to the correct size, slip it over your rod, okay? We have to secure it at the top end. So we do the same thing in reverse. Just wondering where I put it. We do the same thing in reverse. So we put the washer on, and then we put the nut on. I'm just using my pliers to help me tighten where my fingers can't. Yeah, I call it the MDF cake board, but essentially it's the skeletal support. I will still use card or foam core or something like that, which will be the shape of the cake that sits on top of it. And if this were going into this board, I would do the same thing. I would screw from the underneath and from the top and secure that in, and then that won't go anywhere. Now, a point to note about screwing underneath: washer, nut, but you're going to end up sticking proud from your baseboard, okay? So you can either sink a shadow board on top, or just cut some feet with some offcuts of the same thickness MDF, making sure that it's thicker than the washer, and that will enable you to stand it up without it wobbling everywhere. Meet Mr. Toad. Mr. Toad, not a very big cake, but he is gravity defying. He has an internal support inside him. So let's see if you can work out where it is. So through his legs, I've got two 6mm pieces of threaded rod which have been screwed into this baseboard. Then round about here, I've got a small oval cake board which I've screwed in at the top, so giving me two legs and a board. The cake is sitting on top of that board. In the middle of the cake board, just for luck, I've also put a central support pole down the middle, which I've screwed in, all 6mm. Probably stops about here. The next question is, how do you make these cake structures food safe? A couple of techniques that I use. The first, and my favourite, good old-fashioned plastic straws. This is a bubble straw. It's quite a wide sort of milkshake straw. I think I may have even seen them in some of the supermarkets. So I have a variety of different straws. The bubble straws will slip over my big rods, and a regular straw will slip over fine on the other rods. And then what I would do here is I would seal this with a food safe tape so that this is not coming into contact with my cake at all. Another really amazing bit of kit, which is very new to me. It was Karen Fortaleo that told me this, and I can't believe that I hadn't ever come across it before. This is amazing stuff. It's foil tape. It's foil paper, which on one side is sticky and adhesive, so it's food safe, naturally, but it's so easy to use. And quite often, if I've got a complicated metal structure where I can't, or they're bent, where I can only use straws in part, I wrap my structure in food safe tape. You have to make your food structure, your cake structure, excuse me, food safe. It is your #1 priority. So the next thing to think about is how you are going to put your skeleton together. how long do the rods need to be, how big do my boards need to be, where do my boards need to be, which bit of the cake do I need to support, right? This is what you have to think through in the planning before you even go near an egg, frankly. That's what you need to do. The way that I do it is I draw it out. But what I have done is I have taken my design and I have sketched it out to size. I always, more often than not, cut a template if I'm doing a carved cake, even one without a complicated structure, because it keeps you on target. But the other purpose of doing a template for a cake structure cake is because it helps me determine where the rods and the supports are going to go, and I find that much easier to visualise on an albeit very rough sketch than in my head. So I've drawn out this lady, and I know that she's going to have a central pole. I want the pole to go right through her body, up through her neck, and I actually want it to go almost sort of to her forehead, in her head here. Okay? Now, obviously, I can't just stack cake all the way up, even though there's a central pole. I'm going to need additional support. You can see from the design here that this is a bit more complicated as well, because she has arms. So I know in order for me to attach supports for the arms, I need something for those supports to sit into. It's going to carry on going up, and then I'm probably going to have a small one round about here, which I'm going to sort of sit the head piece of cake or Rice Krispie treats, whatever it is that you're using, on the top. And then in between, I'm going to layer my cake with pieces of card cut to shape. Also because, for the client's sake, they then don't have to cut through a piece of cake that's 12 inches tall, which is impossible, right? So I like to break it down into 4 to 5 inch chunks. Cake structures, especially if you're new to them, I know, honestly, God, I really do know. It's a journey that I'm constantly learning, but what I'm finding is the more that I make these complicated cakes, the less fearful I am about tackling the structure for them. Time is the key. Give yourself lots and lots of time. Make sure you've got those key pieces of kit that I outlined before, and just plan the design and structure of your cake well before you even start baking. So I hope you found that helpful. If you've got any questions, just message me, or if there's anything that I didn't cover that you'd like me to cover, or any questions that you have, you know, this is hopefully what this you know, these kind of weekly journals and behind the scenes are for. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and that's just shed a little bit of light on how to put together cake structures.